Thank you, Maura, and thank all of you for joining us in this first webinar that we're conducting here at Ex-Im Bank. We're going to be talking about financial support to increase your export sales. Our goals today are really to show you how you can increase your sales with some of the Export-Import Bank financing. And we're going to show you how you get started and some of the numbers that you can solve in order to begin the process. Who we are. Let's talk a little about Ex-Im Bank. We've been around for a while. We are the official export credit agency, ECA, of the United States government. We've been doing this since 1934. Most major industrialized countries have what they call an ECA, Export Credit Agency. We are the official export credit agency of the United States. We're a self-sustaining agency, which means essentially that we are running at no cost to the taxpayers. We are bound by the rules of Congress, and we go through the budgetary process every year, but we do receive funds from our exposure fees, interest, and facility fees. Our mission is simple. We're here to create and sustain jobs by increasing U.S. export sales. A lot of our policies are geared toward that, our foreign content policies, and a lot of the small business loans that we're doing are really focusing on creating jobs here in the United States. It's very important for us. We like to think that our financing really makes a difference. We're here to minimize the risk that exporters take when exporting. We want to minimize the risk that bankers take when financing these exports. In fact, when we're doing these transactions, a large portion of our authorizations are really to banks to provide guarantees to banks to keep them in the business of financing exports. We really supplement the commercial bank financing, and we don't compete with the banks. When times are difficult, as it has been in the past, we will step up and provide direct loans and continue to provide guarantees for this type of activity. The idea is to strengthen the U.S. competitiveness. We want to compete against other ECAs in other countries, and where that's possible, we'll provide the financing that makes the difference. Now, small business is important to us. Congress has actually mandated that 20% of our authorization should be for small business. We have programs especially designed for small businesses, including our small business multi-buyer policy. We have a division that tracks what we're doing in small business. So that's a very, very key important step for us here. This past year, fiscal year 2010, we've had authorizations, and these are preliminary figures, we've had authorizations close to $5 billion for our small business activity. This is up from 12% from the previous year. Again, our authorizations are 22% of the total authorizations, so we're well within the mandate that's submitted to us by Congress. In terms of numbers, about 85% of all transactions that we do here are really for small businesses. We handle the small transactions for exporters. A number of people think of us as Boeing's bank, but in fact we do finance a good number of aircraft, but we're always financing the suppliers of Boeing. And so we're handling the small businesses that go into making up the large aircraft exports. We like to say there's no transaction too small or too large for Ex-Im Bank. We do the project financing, we do the structured trade financing, but we're also financing the small mom and pop shops. Our challenge is to get the banks involved and get the banks willing to do the smaller deals. We like to tell exporters that we want to take the fear out of exporting. We want to take care of the financial risk. We want exporters to export more to more countries, export more products, and be able to feel comfortable exporting. Let Ex-Im Bank and the bankers take care of the financial risk, and we can move forward with increasing our exports in accordance with the National Export Initiative. If you're concerned as an exporter about when you'll get paid and how you'll get paid, we'll talk a little further about export credit insurance, and we'll also talk about how do you get cash to make this product. We've got a working capital guarantee program that's amply suited to provide working capital to exporters, and these are going to be guarantees to banks so that they can provide the advances to these exporters. If you got a large sale and you're wondering whether or not your buyer will be able to finance this transaction, we've got buyer financing. Most transactions that go forward usually are based upon buyer financing. If you've got a large transaction, we need to make sure that we can finance your buyer under this scenario. So we'll talk a little about buyer financing as well. We're in all kinds of industries. Manufacturing traditionally has been our key market, as the markets are shifting from manufacturing to a more service-oriented product. We have to remind ourselves that it's very easy to talk about exporting a tractor or a trailer, but we do finance the export of services as well. Engineering services, maintenance contracts and the like, feasibility studies. These are all services that we're very, very interested in financing. What's key for us, of course, there's certain areas that we're looking at. Renewable energy. We're doing a great deal of work with renewable energy and anything green. Of course, that's important to us. We've already talked about the aircraft. That's always leading sector for us. But we have several new initiatives, particularly in the medical industry. We're looking to finance more medical equipment going out. Power generation. We do the big deals with structured trade and project financing. But most of our business in terms of numbers are going to be with the small transactions that will require either working capital or export credit insurance. We're in 6 continents. We're providing financing across the globe. Brazil is always a very, very attractive private sector industry for us. Colombia is there. We're financing in that area. Our chairman has just returned from India with the president, where they're talking about financing additional aircrafts to India. Mexico is another country. Traditionally, we've been financing for quite a while. It's a good market for us, public sector and private sector. Congress has also mandated that we have a sub-Saharan Africa outreach effort committee, so we're doing a great deal in South Africa and in Nigeria. One of the new markets for us, of course, is Vietnam. We opened in Vietnam recently, and Turkey is attractive to us as well. We're open in all countries, and these countries can be found on our country limitation schedule, our website at www.exim.gov. But in general, we're providing support across the globe. Let's take, if you find that as an exporter or even a bank that you're going to need funds to fulfill your order, our solution, of course, is providing you with the Working Capital Guarantee Program. We provide the guarantee to the bank so that the bank can then finance the exporter's product, manufacturing of this product to export. We cannot provide working capital for domestic transactions, so we're pretty much looking only at the international thing. We'll spend some time talking about that in a minute. If you find that as an exporter you need to provide terms to your buyers overseas, we've got a product that amply fits, and that's going to be our export receivables insurance. We like to call it export credit insurance. What we're suggesting here in this case is that we'd like to see all exporters have policies so that when they ship and provide terms to their buyer, we take the risk and we provide the insurance. So in the event that the buyer does not pay, the exporter merely comes to us and collects under their insurance. So we'll talk a little about that in a minute. The other thing we have, of course, is if you find that most transactions that go forward, you need to have a creditworthy buyer, and the buyer needs financing. And we're here to provide financing, buyer financing, because in most cases that's where the large ticket items are, and we have programs for both medium and long term. Medium for us is perhaps less than $10 million and up to 5 or 7 years. And long term, of course, would be over 7 years. We provide guarantees and insurance to do this buyer financing. Take a very close look at this working capital guarantee. What it is a guarantee to the bank to finance an exporter's manufacturing if they want to pay for raw materials or labor or supply. The advance is given by the bank. We're providing the bank incentive. We're saying to the bank, we'll provide you with a 90% guarantee. We like the banks to have some, what we call skin in the game, and so they retain a portion of the risk. But they're encouraged to lend to these smaller exporters that they might not lend to. We make it very easy for them under this working capital guarantee loan. We want to get the funds to the exporter, and this is our program. It's really a domestic program, but it's really financing the U.S. exporters. Most of our other programs, we're taking the risk of the buyer, but in this one, we're financing the exporter. And again, there are no transactions that are too small for us to do. We've done $7,000 working capital transaction, and we've gone as high as $46 million for financing tenders on the West Coast. So the idea behind this is that we want to make sure that the banks continue to lend to this particular market. What does this guarantee look like? We're providing guarantees, but it's a fully secured program. The advances that are presented by the bank, made by the bank, are really supported by inventory, and we will lend up to 75% against the inventory, and receivables as well, 90%. Most banks aren't willing to finance or use as collateral foreign accounts receivable. We will be able to do that. And generally, our facilities are available for 1 year. They can be renewed on an annual basis, and in some cases, we can provide a three-year facility. This next chart shows you what happens with working capital where you have a bank, and what happens when you have a bank that has our guarantee. And on the left-hand side, you can see that we have raw material in the amount of $200,000. Generally, banks are not going to feel very comfortable with this, and they will have an advance rate of about 20%. So that means that you've got $40,000 in your borrowing base. WIP, work in progress. Most banks are not willing to lend against work in progress. So that's going to be zero. We, on the other hand, we will. We're going to take that extra risk, and we will lend. Finished goods, banks will lend the 50%. So you got your borrowing base at $300,000 plus the 40, and then accounts receivables. Again, U.S. banks are not very happy lending against foreign accounts receivable. That's our business. That's what we're willing to do. If you look over to the column on the right, we're lending 90% against the foreign accounts receivable. The advance rates for raw material are 75. Advance rates for work in progress are 75. And so at the end of the day, you'll find that a customer has a larger borrowing base. The difference is between $760,000 and $1,650,000. So by using Ex-Im Bank and using our guarantee, you can get an additional, expand your borrowing base, and you're able to borrow more. You're putting your assets to work. It's the objective for here. And we're encouraging banks to do this. We have delegated authority that we give to the banks that will allow them to do this on their own, so their transaction is very quick. This is an example. Avro Industries is an example in South Bend, Indiana, of a transaction that we've worked with. And Avro sells to over 175 countries. In the past few years, they've grown 123%. Their banker is, of course, Morgan, and they are providing quality automobile industrial products to countries across the globe, and all sales from exports. We've been working with this company for a while. It holds about $7 million in inventory at any given time, but they've been working pretty successfully with Ex-Im Bank, and is one of our favorite success stories for working capital. Let's shift a minute and let's talk about accounts receivable financing. This is generally a short-term program, and we are going to be providing protection for the exporter. We're telling the exporter that if you ship and provide terms, we're going to insure you against commercial risk. That's the event that the buyer doesn't pay, and political risk, and that's the event that there's something going on in the country, acts of war, expropriation, anything that's done by a government that prevents payment from coming back to us. So we offer those two types of coverage under the insurance. You put them both together, and what you have is a comprehensive insurance policy. And these insurance policies are insuring receivables from 180 to 360 days. Most of them actually are for 60 days. If the exporter is providing terms for 60 days, we're willing to finance a creditworthy buyer in those particular cases. So it allows for the exporter to be more competitive, and generally once these receivables are insured by Ex-Im Bank, they can take them to the bank and have them discounted and get additional financing. So it's a back-ended way to get working capital once you've made several shipments and have been doing this for a while. Oh, insurance policies, we have many. We've got policies for exporters, we've got policies for banks. The most popular policy is the multi-buyer policy, where we identify a small business. And when we say small business, that's by SBA's definition. They employ less than 500 employees, and they are exporting. And if they have had credit sales less than $7.5 million for the past 3 years, then they would qualify for a small business multi-buyer policy. That will enable the exporter to ship to many countries across the globe, countries in which we are open. So this is probably one of the best policies that Ex-Im Bank has to offer. It's for small businesses. It has a single rate based upon not the country, but the tenor and the category of exporter. Demtech Corporation in Miami, Florida. This is another case that we have that a number of us here at the bank are talking about. We've had a multi-buyer insurance policy for them to cover export sales of about $500,000. They've supported 45 new jobs as a result of working with us. They have more than 45% of Dexter employees are working today just to fulfill the orders that are supported by Ex-Im Bank. The company has been around for a while, and this is an example where they are exporting to more than one country, so the multi-buyer policy works very well for them. It supported sales to over 80 countries, and they continue to expand their market. Buyer financing. In most cases, in order for large transactions to go through, buyers need financing. Again, we're part of the ECA, Export Credit Agency, and we're all playing in accordance to certain rules. And one of them is we follow what we call the arrangement. One of the rules is that all buyers must make a 15% cash down payment, and we, Ex-Im Bank, like other Export Credit Agency, finance the 85% portion. For us, the medium-term program recalls for repayment up to 5 years, and on exceptional cases, we'll go 7 years. Medium-term for us is amounts less than $10 million, and this usually covers most of our small business exporters. Now, we can do transactions much larger. We do $100 million transactions, and we finance aircraft and projects. But for our medium-term program, $10 million seems to be the amount that covers most of our transactions. And for our medium-term financing, we can offer guarantees, where we provide a guarantee to the bank, and the bank makes the loan to support this export. We also have what we call a medium-term export credit insurance. That's, again, maximum of that is up to $10 million, and we can, of course, finance that with a bank. In very few incidences, we provide direct loans for medium-term transactions. So that's really, the amounts are relatively small. When we do a direct loan here at Ex-Im Bank, it's generally going to be for larger amounts at a fixed interest rate. Striving to do more. We're making credit more available. We're looking to increase our outreach efforts, and we're coming up with new products that will include supply chain financing. We're doing a lot with indirect exports. We have reinsurance products that we're coming out with. So we're looking to move forward with a number of new products this coming year, and again, focusing really on small businesses. We want also to working on our brand new small business web portal. If you get a moment, take a look at it at www.exim.gov. We're making it very easy for small businesses to come in and receive the kind of assistance they need. We want to streamline our operations to improve turnaround time. That's always been an issue here at the bank. We're trying to get exporters online so they can process transactions quickly. We'd like to get banks to have delegated authority so they don't really have to come here to Washington to get this approved. And we're interested in developing, relationships with banks, relationships with city-states, and relationships with brokers in order to move this process along and obtain quicker approval for processing transactions. We have a web page that has recently been vamped. We were encouraging you to visit our web page and, wherever possible, take a look at the Small Business Portal. And for additional information, we'd like you, or if you'd like to talk to an export finance manager, the number is there, just +2, and it will prompt you to your geographic area. I want to thank you for participating in this seminar. There are several questions that we have, and we will move directly to them. Getting paid in rupees, how can we convert to U.S. dollars? We're suggesting to most buyers, particularly small businesses, to invoice in dollars and get paid in dollars, and thereby putting the risk of conversion on the buyer. We like to see that payments become in dollars. However, if you are getting paid in rupees, you can certainly go into any major bank and you can arrange for a spot transfer or foreign exchange. Most major banks will have a foreign exchange department, and you can convert dollars to most hard currency. Another question has come in. It says, do I engage directly with Ex-Im Bank or through my lender? Very, very good question. There are several ways to come into Ex-Im Bank. If you are in need of working capital, we will encourage you to go to our website and pull up your state. You will find in there a list of banks that have delegated authority with us. Those are the banks that you should contact directly. You will be receiving information directly from them. They have the authority to approve your working capital transaction request. If it's over their limit, they will forward it to Washington, and we'll take it from there. If you are a small business and you are interested in export credit insurance, we encourage you to, number one, contact our regional office. And also on the web, you will see a list of registered brokers with us. We encourage you to contact our brokers. They will walk you through the transaction. They will help you with the online registration and processing of the transaction. These brokers are paid by us, but they will be working directly for you as an exporter. If you have a large transaction, you're saying, listen, I'm interested in financing this $60 million transaction, if that's the case, and you're not quite sure where Exim Bank stands with all of this, we're encouraging you to go online and fill out a request for what we call a letter of interest. Just indicate the exporter, the buyer, the type of product, the cost it will be, and we will run that through our system, and without looking at financial information, we'll run that through our system to make sure that we've hit all of the policy considerations. And within 7 days, we'll give you an answer back as to whether or not we will consider this transactions. So you can always come to us direct. You can go to the regional offices. You can contact the brokers. You can contact our city-state partners and also the lenders. Another question comes in from here. It says, I need $200,000 credit line. Can you help me? Again, we're here to finance exports. To the extent that you have an export and are in need of working capital or buyer financing, we can help. I encourage you to go to the number that's listed here, locate your geographic area, and talk to our regional officers. They're more than willing and ready to help. Their emphasis is on small business, and they're willing to finance small business and work with small business exporters. Another question has come in. Only support manufacturers? No. Actually, we support all types of industries. We provide financing for goods and services. Working capital is generally designed for companies that want to manufacture and export, but we provide financing for trading companies, for manufacturing companies, for companies that are involved in services as well. Here comes another question from the West Coast, I think. Do you make loans to foreign governments or agencies? Yes. When we first started financing many years ago, we were lending primarily to government agencies. They were doing balance of payments loans and financing large projects with government guarantees. We then moved away from that, and then we began financing the private sector, and we looked for bank guarantees to support the private sector. As we became more familiar with markets and what they're doing, we ended up looking at the private sector in these countries, and we were able to analyze the financial statements of a number of companies in the private sector. So we're lending also to private sector. We're lending to parastatals, which are not quite fully owned government agencies, not sovereign entities, but a step down below. So we're financing across the board, both with foreign governments, parastatals, banks, private sectors, and the like. We extend. We just need to be open. Remember, check that country limitation schedule. That's our key, because legally we're prohibited from doing business in certain countries, but we're willing to do business wherever we can. Here's another question. How do I determine the creditworthiness of a foreign buyer? We have on our website a list of what we call credit standards. They're credit standards for short term, so merely you need to go to the website and look up insurance short term, and you can find the short term credit standards, and it gives you an indication of the credit worthiness. We're looking for smaller transactions, less than $300,000. We're looking for a bank checking or a credit reference, trade reference, to help us evaluate that particular customer. Once you receive an insurance policy with us, that's one thing. We still have to approve your buyer under that insurance policy. For the medium-term transactions, we have what we call medium-term credit standards, and that will walk you through exactly what we're looking for when we're looking at companies, and is really depending upon the category. In other words, a bank requirement is one thing. A private sector requirement for $10 million, of course, we're going to look for audited financial statements, and then we're going to look for certain ratios. So it really depends upon the size of the transaction and the category of the foreign buyer. Let's see, how are we doing with questions? Yeah, one of the last few questions that we received is probably one of our favorite questions. What's the turnaround time for financing transactions at Ex-Im Bank? It really depends upon the program. What we're saying is that for working capital, we'd like to go to the delegated authority banks. Then that's just a matter of how quickly the bank will approve the transaction. And analyzing the financial statements, if it's a straightforward transaction, they can generally do that within 3 weeks. If it's an insurance product, what we like to do is find experienced insurance exporters, provide them with discretionary authority so they can actually approve the transaction up to their own discretionary limit. So there are a number of ways that we can improve the turnaround time in here. And what we're trying to do is get that authority out and into the field. Give the banks delegated authority, provide the exporters with discretionary authority, and then we move on from there. Okay? Are Nigerian banks, another question, are Nigerian banks authorized to provide loan guarantees? We do have a special pilot program for sub-Saharan Africa, and there are a number of banks on that list that have facilities with us. And they are working with our Africa division. And I would encourage you to go to the Africa portal, take a look at that website. It is one of the most useful websites because they list there the list of U.S. banks that know the market, that are working in that market, and they also list the Nigerian banks that have facilities with us. So that's a good place to start. They'll give you the name and the contact person of all the Nigerian and African banks that we're working with. Here's another question. How can you help start up export trading companies? We're generally pretty good at determining the kind of financing that might be available for you if you're exporting. We have to rely on our other partners at U.S. Commercial Service and SBA to do the what we call export counseling. So we're not going to be in a position to tell you how to start a trading company or where to get started. But as part of our training every other month here, we do bring over experts from commerce that will help companies get the kind of information that they need. 1-800-USA-TRADE is an excellent source. You can go to export.gov to get all of the kinds of information on starting up companies. Export.gov is an excellent website that introduces you to most of the agencies that are involved in export financing here. The Trade Information Center is your source. Can Ex-Im help to support open account collection? If you have a insured policy with Ex-Im Bank, we can, of course, approve that buyer, and in the event that you do not get paid, you come and collect from Ex-Im Bank, and then we take care of the collection from that deadbeat borrower, and we will take care of that. If we're not involved in the transaction, generally we can't set up a collection for your account. Ex-Im Bank has to be involved in the transaction for that to happen. Okay. Here's an easy question that came in. Who pays the brokers? We pay the brokers. They receive part of the commission from Ex-Im Bank, and they actually work for you, the exporter. We encourage you to go to the brokers. We encourage you to work with brokers, and they are a very, very close part of our organization. We partner with brokers, city-state partners, lenders, and banks. So we pay the brokers, and they work for you. And if you are in need of a broker, we encourage you to either go on our website and look for the list of brokers, or contact our regional office. They can also assist you. Here's a question that says, can a company use a mix of XM products, insurance and working capital and medium term? Excellent question. Excellent question. Normally what happens is we provide the working capital to the exporter. We take a look at the transaction in total. We may decide that, well, we're not very comfortable with your buyer. Perhaps in order to protect you, we also need to have insurance on that receivable. So we provide the working capital, we provide the export credit insurance, and therefore that will enable the exporter to get paid should something go wrong, and we take that risk as well. Now, if you got the working capital and if you have the insurance, we'll provide a discount on the insurance premium, 25% discount on the insurance premium, and the facility fee drops from 1.5% on the working capital to 1%. So there's an advantage to using more than one product. You can have working capital, and you can also be exporting to a very creditworthy buyer overseas. We are also in a position to finance that buyer overseas and provide term financing so that they can, of course, continue to purchase goods and services from the United States. Time-wise, we've got time for a few more questions. Will XM Bank support the purchase of equipment imported to produce goods to be exported? That's a yes and no question. What we generally do is take a look at the equipment or the export, and we look at it to determine how much of that is U.S. content and how much of that is foreign content. For our short-term facilities, working capital and insurance, if the mixture is greater than 50% U.S. content, we will finance the entire export. Okay? If we are looking, however, at medium or long-term financing, we're only going to be able to finance the U.S. content. So what we've imported, in that particular case, we will not be able to finance. But bear in mind, we're only financing, in that medium and long-term program, we're only financing 85% of the export value anyway. Again, our foreign content policy will change depending on whether or not it is short-term or long-term. For the short-term transactions, as long as you have at least greater than 50% U.S. content, we will finance the entire transaction. Here's another one of my favorite questions. I want to sell to Africa. Who do I contact? Ben Todd. You can go online and you can take a look at, you can call that number and get contact from the regional office, but we have an area here in Washington that's focusing on sub-Saharan Africa, and Ben Todd is in that area and he's anxious to receive calls regarding exports to this particular market, because again, Congress has mandated that we'll have a Sub-Saharan Africa Committee, and that's a particular focus for us. Let's see. We need startup capital. Do you provide? Again, we're experts at providing the kind of financing for your exports. So that means that you really should be in business for a while, and we're not working very well with startup companies. A number of companies, forget the percentage, go out of business within their first year. So we are at the position where we're really looking for export-ready companies that have some domestic experience and now ready to move into export. So we're not in a position to provide startup companies, the startup capital. The companies that are starting from scratch are generally going to be required to look for perhaps some family funds and some savings, or generally credit cards to get started on a smaller basis as they build their business. But we're not very good at providing startup capital. SBA does have some programs that provides for financing and direct access to capital. So that might be another solution. Does Ex-Im Bank match funding from competing governments for Europe for large projects? This sounds like a question which we call tied aid. As a general rule, countries are able to provide aid, we are able to provide aid, but we shouldn't be mixing general financing of transactions with aid. Countries that are providing aid that put ourselves in a disadvantage, our policy is to match tied aid and not necessarily to initiate. Europe is generally not a tied aid market. We can consider some things, but that's a very specific transaction. You'll have to give us a call. By and large, most ECAs, export credit agencies, are playing by the rules and not offering either soft loans or tied aid, but occasionally you run across that. You need to give us a call, and it depends upon the market. A few more questions. Credit insurance for very large companies, $5 million sales. Yes, we do provide export credit insurance for large exporters. After the financial difficulty, a lot of the customers from AIG and a lot of the large insurance companies came to Ex-Im Bank. Our insurance book is up at record numbers. We're providing a lot of financing to both large companies and medium-sized companies. We have a small business multi-buyer policy for a small business. After you're no longer a small business, you've graduated, and then we provide you with a standard multi-buyer policy. So a corporation that's in need of export credit insurance can either get a standard multi-buyer policy that will allow them to ship to many countries, or a single buyer policy that will ensure shipment to one buyer in one particular country. So the answer to the question is yes, we can provide export credit insurance for large companies. We can also provide medium-term insurance for buyers that want to purchase for a longer period of time. Question here comes. It says, what if buyers don't pay on time? Well, then that's usually triggers a default. Depending on which program you're working with, you may have to wait 30 days, but in the event the buyer fails to pay on time, that constitutes an event of default, protracted default, and you merely read your policy if it's an insurance policy. If it's working capital, you have a certain period of time in order to make a claim on Ex-Im Bank, and then, of course, we pay you, and then we go after the buyer. We have contracted outside firms to take care of collections and or restructuring of some of these transactions if that's necessary. How are banks' delegated authority limits accessed? Well, that really depends upon your experience. We have a number of banks, 60 or more, that have delegated authority. Perhaps half of that are active users. If you've used the delegated authority for a while with us and you need an increase, it will require just a field examination and a request from us to increase the amount based upon your experience and the work that you've done with us. We're always anxious to increase banks' delegated authority lines of credit and limits. I have export orders, but can I get support through Ex-Im Bank? Well, it depends upon the kind of financing you're going to need. If it's working capital, clearly purchase orders are necessary, but you would have to be in business for at least a year, provide financials, 3 years worth of financials for working capital, and also provide a personal guarantee. If we're going to be looking at your financial information, and we're going to be looking at domestically, we can get a lot more information. We're going to be looking at your personal guarantee, your tax returns, and for the working capital guarantee, even though it's secured, we're going to be taking a very careful look at at your credit history. But what's key in that program, we do have borrowers that are marginal. What's key in that program is the ability to perform. If you can manufacture computers or widgets or whatever, that's a performance issue. And if you can perform, that's what we're most interested in. So we'd like to take a look at the financial information and your ability to perform. That's what will qualify you for the working capital guarantee. Exporter insurance, we want you to be creditworthy, but we're really taking the risk of the buyer. So you need to call a broker, and we can talk about that. All right, I think we've got time for one more question. Where do I find a list of foreign banks that work with Ex-Im Bank? We have on our website, and I know it's in the Africa portal, a list of foreign banks that work with us. We also have on our website a list of the lender referrals. You will find a number of banks that have been here to Washington and have taken training here at Ex-Im Bank and are listed as references for Export-Import Bank. We here at Ex-Im Bank are primarily interested in the export. We're not focusing on the ownership of the exporter or the bank that's involved. We work with foreign banks, representatives of foreign banks, agencies here. What's key for us is the export. We'll examine the export and make sure that meets our requirements in terms of U.S. content and that we're not selling the military. But the trigger for us is the export, not the ownership of either the bank or the exporter. Buyers overseas, of course, you have to have an export and you have to have a buyer overseas in order for us to finance you in that particular case. Is there a conflict to work with Ex-Im Bank and other government programs like Corporate Commodities Corporation? No, actually, we here at Ex-Im Bank provide a training every other month. We bring over to the bank other agencies that are involved in financing, and it's going to be the Foreign Agricultural Service for the GS 102 program for financing of agricultural equipment. We work with SBA for the working capital program. We have a combined application. There are some things that they can do. They perhaps don't have the same requirement for the U.S. content as we do. They don't have that requirement. So if you find you have products that you want to export and they don't have at least 50% U.S. content, we can refer them to SBA and they can handle those transactions. They can also handle transactions in which you are exporting to military organizations. They don't have that restriction. So we absolutely work with other government programs. We include them in our training programs, and we like to see particularly Foreign Agricultural Service and Trade TDA, where they're doing feasibility studies. We will finance the actual export. So we work very closely with other government agencies. Well, we'd like to thank all of those who have participated in today's webinar. We will be thanking you more formally via email, and we will also include in that a brief survey. We will continue to do these webinar series as they are beneficial and work to again meet the National Export Initiative and double exports in the next 5 years. That's our goal, and we look to all banks and brokers and city-state partners to assist us in helping us meet those goals. I thank you, and that will end the webinar for today. Please contact the reference numbers there, visit our website, and we hope that we will continue to export more to more countries and more products. Thank you.